When you sit down to storyboard, do you find it hard to find where to begin? With this simple way of breaking down a script, you'll be boarding in no time. Hi, I'm Gonzalo, and I've been storyboarding professionally for a few years now. Today, I'm going to show you how to tackle a storyboard beginning to end, and show you the tricks I use to keep you from getting stuck. Essentially, the first step when you're prepping for a storyboard is to break down like the parts of that into smaller moments, into smaller actions. So yeah, very simply here, we are in the interior of a ship that's lifting off. So there's three things that happen within this small paragraph. Essentially, Tara, the character, walks in, the doors close behind her, and there's a rumble as the ship lifts off. So just from that, like, we could break this down further into little moments. We can break this down into little scenes. We're now taking these ideas and we're communicating them visually. So very simply, Tara walks in through the doors close, and then there's liftoff. So I want to create like a sense of like a bit more peril. Normally our eyes go like left to right, but essentially whenever we have motion that goes in this way, it seems like progression. I want this to feel like the opposite thing, because I want it to feel a bit like, you know, it's like there's reading the script, there's been like something they've been fighting something, and it's like high tension moment, and then calms down slowly. So I want to kind of ramp it up, and I'm gonna start by doing a little bit of a Dutch angle as like the character walks in through the door. So I'm just gonna draw really roughly, like this is incredibly roughly, like I'm essentially just doing thumbnails here. Like the character's gonna rush in through the door, and we're just gonna like essentially we just have this character going in. We'll talk about character shorthand in a bit as I'm cleaning up, because right now I'm just like trying to be as basic as I could possibly be. So yeah, we have this character, they're rushing in, and I'm probably gonna have them look back so we can like take a look at the door closing in behind them. Again, this is like the same shot, same exact background, a door shutting like right behind them. They're gonna be looking there, so they're looking straight up as they're coming in, then they're like the door closes in behind them. They're essentially walking up towards the camera, and then I want to have a shot where we have a little bit of a camera movement. I like to draw the camera movement outside of the frame. Literally right now just an arrow. Normally there's like specific ways of drawing it where like you move the frame still there. Right now, because I'm working with this pre-made grid, again, another thing that really helps when you draw your own stuff is you get to like be a lot more specific about the camera movements and stuff like that. I also want to follow her eyeline. When you have a character looking a specific way, if you leave space in front of them, it gives them like a little bit of breathing room, and it makes it seem like whatever they're looking at is important. If you take away that space, it suddenly makes them feel cramped and trapped. So we kind of want to create like a little bit of empty space whenever someone's looking forward, just because it gives us that little bit of room. Just psychologically, it feels good. There's people that do the opposite, but again, learn the rules first, then you can break them. But yeah, essentially, I want to create a little bit of a camera motion up here that just moves up to the left as we're seeing the character look at the door, and then she's gonna kind of like look in the opposite way, and I'm going to reframe her a little bit when this happens, essentially. And just the arrows, we draw them so we know where we start and where we finish, but essentially she's just turned her head, and the camera's created a little bit of empty space, so like it would end up looking something more like this now, with like the doors almost behind her and her looking to the side, essentially, something like that. Yeah, so that's just an idea, and again, this is literally just walks in, doors closed. We can break this down further. I want to have like her look behind her and then look ahead, because I think that creates a little bit of like, gives a little bit of importance to the doors closing. But this is just one way of boarding this, like a very simple way of boarding this. It could be done a million different ways. Shorthand when it comes to characters. So these are the characters that we're using. These are just a couple characters I've designed, and I wrote this with them in mind. But essentially, this is Tara, and this is her whole design. Yeah, we're not drawing this every single time for our storyboards. That would be a very silly thing to do. So what we do when we create storyboards is we create shorthand for each one of our characters. So for example, let's grab Tara here. We're going to focus on proportions, on iconic shapes, and honestly not much else. It's really about the silhouette. So like in the case of her, she's pretty muscly, she's pretty squat. So honestly, something like this, where like we're getting those legs wide like that, just giving her a gun. There we go. And like she's got kind of like a pointy face with a bun. Give her some eyes. She's angry, and then she's got the little thing here
on the hair, and then the knife over here. There we go. Yeah, that's essentially her. That's how I would go about drawing her if I was trying to get that shorthand very much down. This is how I would like sum up this design in like very few strokes. We could even add like a little line for the ear if we want to have a little bit more like direction to where the face is and stuff like that. And obviously if you have her from farther away, she would look a lot like more stick figurey, probably something like this from further away. And if we were to do a close-up, then I might actually do a little bit more with her face to try and show the little bit of expression and stuff like that. But again, like a lot of it is focused on that like expression part of things when we're like up close, and mostly just simply silhouette when we're far away. Yeah, this will do for her. When we have like a close-up, when we have a mid shot, and we have a faraway shot. That's essentially what shorthand is. You don't want to get too busy, you don't want to draw all the details, it's not important. It's about it being recognizable as the character, and that's pretty much about it.
If you want to try your hand at storyboarding, we're giving away this very script, as well as 2 character sheets with shorthand breakdowns, so you can board your own version of this scene.
Now we lay down a little bit of perspective grid. The quickest way I like to think about it is that we have the 2 planes, like in 1 point perspective. Actually, let me grab this book because I can show that. Essentially, you have a ground plane and a sky plane that meet at the horizon line. So most of the time, we're not going to have the horizon line on the middle of the frame because that looks bad. We're either going to lower the horizon line or we're going to put it up a lot and be looking down at our subject. So it means that we're going to be seeing the majority of either the bottom or the top plane. So a lot of the time you're going to see in a lot of professional storyboards, there isn't really like a specific grid, but like we do something like this where we would define a little bit of a plane. Let's say that this one's a bit turned around with perspective and stuff. Like you would just have like a little bit of a drawing of like a perspective plane like this in the background. If I have this perspective plane over here and then I just draw a person in there, you're going to very much understand, even if like this person is not in perspective, you very much understand we're looking down at them. Whereas if I have the same person, but instead I draw a perspective grid more like this, you're going to kind of assume that we're looking up at this person, even though you can't see much of the ground. Like here I could put like a little cliff over here and we're like seeing the person behind the cliff, on top of the cliff, and looking at the stuff. Yeah, that just adds context, but we're looking up at the person. It's the same drawing of the same person. We're not really worried about the anatomy and perspective and all those little details. Just the grid is telling us a lot about how our camera is angled, and that's already like a huge step. So with something as simple as a grid, we are able to very quickly identify exactly what we want. So in this case, for the sake of creating something a bit more dramatic, I want to have a pretty low horizon just to make the character seem very heroic as they run inside. And again, I want it to be a bit of a Dutch angle, so I want to tilt it a bit to the side. So let's get the top of the grid here, place that. Essentially, like I know there would be like a horizon line here, maybe like the vanishing point is somewhere over here. Not really important right now. It's just about understanding the kind of like what the plane for that grid would look like more than anything. That's the most important part here. So just something like this would very much do. And then we can go about placing a little bit of the door, and yeah, just a little bit of perspective. I know it's terrifying, perspective, oh so scary, but yeah. And you notice I'm working on different layers just so like if I really want to change the framing and stuff like that, I can move things around. But yeah, that's essentially what I've decided. I want my character to be coming from this door and just walking into the ship and stuff like that. So yeah, that's essentially what I want the framing to look like. So having that, I'm gonna blur this out a lot less than the background grid, but still blur it out a little bit because I want the darkest lines to be the character walking up. So what I can do, because this is going to be the same shot for all of them, I can essentially just duplicate this.
So now I'm essentially just drawing the character. So we're drawing a couple of the positions, but essentially just the minimum amount that I need to kind of define what kind of movement she's doing as she rolls in.
So now we have this scene where essentially like we have this whole moment, and this is just Tara walks in and the door closes. In this case, we don't have her walk in, we have her roll in like a cool actiony way. But yeah, we can go here then and delete some of the background that's behind our character and things like that.
So essentially here what we're doing is just cleaning it up a bit and having her stand right here at the end, like we did with her thumbnail before. A little clearer, but same kind of vibe that we went with before.
That's how much you can like break things down. So you start by breaking them down into the description. Tara walks in, doors close. Okay, so we have two things happening. Because I wanted this to be more of an action scene, I decided that these two things are happening simultaneously. She's walking in as the doors close. Now I'm breaking these actions down further. So she's outside the door, she's inside the door, we have a little bit of a roll, and she stands. Then I also want to emphasize the closing of the door in this next panel. Then she stands up and she looks at the other character, at Lila.
How would you interpret this? What camera angles or framing would you use? I can't wait to see what your storyboards look like. So, once you're done with them, share them with me and our community of artists over in our Discord.
Yeah, she's gonna say some dialogue here and stuff, and we can use the dialogue also as a part of a beat, as part of this breakdown. But essentially what we've done is we've taken this initial idea and we've broken it down into like several pieces, and then we've broken those down into several pieces, and then we end up with these panels. So just a reminder, this is what we had. These were just our thumbnails, and this is the level of work that I want you to put into thumbnails. This is how the process of storyboarding works and how I like to break it down. I start with the actual actions. I break it down into actions, into things that are happening on screen. You break those down and then you develop them. You test different things with the thumbnails and then you develop from there. That's how I like to break it down and how I make doing a storyboard feel less overwhelming.
So we normally add values to storyboards because we want to make sure that at the end of the day things are clear. We want to make things visible from just a glance at them.
So yeah, so like we've nailed it down to this. And she's saying the dialogue. She might say it like here in between us. She's like getting up. She might say boggles, and then she's gonna say that was a close one. She's saying that during this shot, as she turns her head and looks at the other person that we're about to meet, and we're like dying to see who shows up. Other character, Lila. Let's have her in like a little magenta, I guess. So she sits on chair, then flips through switches. Okay, fantastic. And then she says, I warned you. Awesome. Let's go again and break this down into our little things. What are the ideas that we're gonna try and board now? So, first of all, sitting on a chair, she's flipping switches. It means that she's like piloting the ship, and then she says dialogue. Perfect. Okay, awesome. What's missing between these two? So the thing that we need to connect this shot with the next shot, I think, is an establishing shot. I want to establish where she is and where this new Lila is, like this new person, and where they are in relation to each other. Because this is going to allow me to start with like a wider shot of both of them to establish that relationship, and then move from that to like tighter shots between one and the other, do the classic shot reverse shot kind of like dialogue that we're very used to. But by establishing their position relative to each other first, the audience isn't lost. So we say that Lila's going to occupy this side of the screen mostly, and Tara's going to occupy this side of the screen after this little like action movement kind of thing. So yeah, let's do a little bit of a sketchy version of what we want to happen, like her looking at. I think I want to do like a shot from the back of her character, like she's standing here, and then we can see the other character sitting down on her chair over here, essentially, with like some like screens and stuff and things, to just create that like little bit of relationship of space where we can see where they are in relation to each other. Then from that I can cut to like the shot of our second character, like, you know, an actual like close-up of them on the chair and stuff like that. We can even do like a reverse establishing shot to kind of like establish that like one of them is like farther back from the other. We can even have like a little bit of a mysterious reveal kind of moment for this character, just to add drama to the situation, and have like our main character here in the back, kind of like over there essentially, and just like create like this little bit of a, like, again, re-establishing the thing but moving on to this character. That could be a thing. That could very much be a thing. We could also do like a more complicated shot where we like start with like some like details of like fingers for like clicking the switches, and then lift up from there to meet her, and then do the little bit of establishment. So that was a close one, wasn't it? We can go from that to like a hand doing like like a little bit of the switches. Again, like this is the ideation phase. This is why we're doing this, to like see where our imagination takes us. Like we can see a hand like flipping through the switches, and then we move the camera up from the hand to like get to slowly see the person doing this kind of like switch flipping and stuff. Like maybe she does like a couple of taka, and then the camera moves up and we meet her face essentially. Again, always trying to keep her like center left, so like her like looking at the switches concentrated and focused and stuff. So yeah, like we can do like a thing where like we pan up from like the switches to her, and also this kind of like a weird angle for like switch flipping and stuff, because we would have to see it from like somewhere over here. But yeah, like as we go down, we kind of like establish her, and then we could use that as like another way. This is for camera movement, should be outside of the frame. But yeah, so like as we go down, we can like have her like move around. Again, we have her sitting on a chair flipping through the switches, and then we can have her start to turn around to look at our other character essentially. So maybe her like her face turns first, her like hand comes down, and she's got like her hand on the control or something. So like her like face turns first as like she's turning to the thing. So we can have like a little bit of that, use that camera movement of the thing moving here to establish like her a little more. Like again, move towards, rather than doing the establishing shot first and then focusing on the thing, starting with like a detail, then moving into an establishing shot. But you always need an establishing shot there, and you can't wait too long between establishing shots, because then you're gonna get the person confused. So let's have her like turning around in her chair. Let's make it a swivel chair, and we're gonna have her turning around, and it's gonna turn from like a detailed shot. This is a very complicated camera movement. I don't know why I'm making things so complicated. We're gonna go from like a detailed hand shot to a close-up to an over the shoulder essentially. Why? Because I don't know, I guess I like making things complicated. Yeah, we're turning from this to like an over the shoulder kind of like shot. Like she's turning around in the chair and her camera slowly drifting to kind of like frame them together. Yeah, that's a bit much. That's a lot much, but it's a good idea. It's no, I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's an interesting idea. And doing this kind of thumbnailing kind of like helps us come up like with this kind of stuff, because again, like I could go back to the idea we had first, which is like going from an over the shoulder of our lady here with a button. We know what she looks like, we understand where she's at and stuff like that, we know. So we can go and use her as like our point of relativity and create this kind of like over the shoulder with our tech lady, who's like fidgeting with the controls and making sure that the ship doesn't die and stuff, and create that and use that as like our point of like reference for creating that like shot, reverse shot. Yeah, we can use it kind of like an over the shoulder shot to just show us the relationship in space between one and the other. Let's make her a bit bigger and put her off to the side, because again, we don't really need to see her too much. This is just to frame this lady over here. Let's lower the horizon a little bit maybe, and put like stuff, yeah, so we can like have like a little bit of a more interesting perspective like this, a little bit of a grid, and we can go from this over the shoulder to like the back and forth between them and stuff like that. We could go from this like over the shoulder relating. That was a close one, and then we can have the character like turn in this. I like the idea of her swiveling the chair, because I want them to face each other at some point. So like maybe she's swiveling the chair around and turning towards her, and as we're seeing this chair swivel. As we're seeing this chair swivel, we cut in that motion to the close-up of our newly revealed character being all smug. See, we kind of resolved it in 3 frames here. That's another interesting way of doing it. I warned you, she says. I warned you. I can't spell. But she's like being all smug, like, I warned you. Like, I don't know. What's a smug face? Like that. There we go. It's like, I warned you. And now in 3 frames, we've kind of resolved this whole thing. We show like the back of the chair or something like that, and we allude like that the person's sitting there, and we have like our character coming into frame to then cut to the reverse shot of that with like the 2 characters now like close together. She's like touching the buttons and stuff on the chair. This one's like, hey, what do you think of the thing that just happened? With like her arm around the chair or whatever, leaning in. This is really rough, but like this kind of idea. And then we can have the whole dialogue happening like over here, where like we're cutting it a lot more close. And like this one's like turning like from more of this kind of like angle. We're looking down here. Like I want them to like be looking down at her right now from like a perspective of the other lady. So we're looking down at her, and again she's got her arm up or whatever. But yeah, we're looking down at this lady, which we haven't established a shorthand for, but it's kind of like that. She kind of has like a little antenna thing going on and a little hair strand thing going on. So I'm just gonna do her hair and a little antenna for now. So like we can have her come walking into the scene like this, and just like having this kind of like, oh yeah, she's coming in. This one's turning around. We can see like maybe the shoulder of the other one, or like not even, and we're like looking down at her here. So like I'm gonna try to see like that, so like it's a bit more clear that we're looking down. But again, like we'd have the grid here to kind of like show us that we're looking down. And she's like being smug at me like, I told you so. And then the other one's like, what? No, how dare you tell me so? And by doing this, we're like cutting it a lot more intimately and creating like a lot more of like a relationship between these two, because they're supposed to be a couple. Having them like when they're talking and arguing and stuff be this close kind of like does help with that. Like we're having two people like this close to each other and putting the camera really in their faces. But by doing that, we're kind of like creating a bit more of like an intimate kind of space. And again, we can have this. I don't really like this shot here. So let's, just feels a bit weird. Let's move to this one, and let's say that she's doing stuff and pressing buttons, and she's pressing buttons down here. Again, very, very rough. I'm just coming up with ideas with you guys here. And the other one, we have her walking up slowly, like slowly walking up from like the back, with like dropping her guns or whatever. Maybe she's got her guns. I don't know if she drops them afterwards, but essentially she's like just walking up to her. It's like crap. But yeah, she's essentially just walking up to her. So we can have her like do this whole thing slowly. Like we start with our tech lady, like we go from her to like the tech lady. We're establishing a bit more of that like distance, and we have her like walking up. Maybe even we might want like an in-between here. I'm calling it in between. It's not really an in between, but something kind of like in between, like a frame between those two frames. Essentially, is what I'm trying to say. So wait, no, that's not what I wanted. I'm getting into it, which means that like things are moving a bit weird pace, because I get like all passionate and stuff, and I get lost in the sauce. So I have this one over here, this one over there. Move this one, duplicate it, move it over here. Okay, perfect. So yes, okay, cool. So now that we have this one, we delete her from here. She don't exist here no more. She comes up like over here, essentially. She's coming up like here, and then she leans over, so like she's like kind of like a dark silhouette coming up behind this lady as she does her techie stuff. She's touching one button, touching another button, going up to the thing, and this one in the meantime, a Terra is coming in behind her, and then she comes in like taps her like a little bit in the arm, and then our character like moves there, like this one turns her head to look at her wife essentially, and just goes like, hey, I told you so, or whatever. We might want to split these up. A thing that's pretty important in storyboarding, you don't want to cut with a character in a different pose. You want the character to have the pose they had on the previous cut, if you see them in that shot. So like, let's say that this character is turning here. Well, essentially I want to like have her be looking exactly the same way that she's looking here. So like looking up here with her headphones on the thingy, with her arms stretched out, and then she can turn and be like, hey, didn't I told you so, or something. What she say? I warned you. Yeah, essentially I told you so. I warned you. And then we can see her wife's face of like, shut up. What do you mean you warned me? So this is how you go about it. You break things down, again, whether it's a script, or if you're doing something that's like an action scene that you don't have a script for, or just like a thing that you have in your head. The best thing that you could do is write yourself a list of actions that you want to happen. You can make them simultaneously happen, you can make them happen one after another, but you want to know the things that you want to touch upon during your script. And slowly you start with like the really rough thumbnails, and you walk up to things that are a bit more polished and a bit better looking. communicate. It's really about being able to communicate clearly what is happening, who is who, and how you want your camera, your angles, and all that kind of stuff to happen.
For cleanup, I gotta admit, I went a little bit overboard. You can see here, I wanted to show off, to spend a little extra time cleaning up each one of the panels. Honestly, you don't really have to go this clean. I did a bunch of shading of the backgrounds, a little bit of gradients, really cleaned up the silhouettes of the characters. But the only thing that really should be important is, like we've talked about, getting that grid to signify where the horizon line is and what the perspective of the camera angle is, and making sure that the actual facial expressions and acting decisions are clear, because that's what we most want to pay attention to. As you can see, I chose to do a lot of grayscale for the background and specifically highlighted the characters in pretty bright tones just so they are easily read even in motion. I didn't really have time to do an animatic for this one, but you'll see all of the panels next to each other here by the end. Do you want to try it yourself? Remember to pick up our free resources below and share your boards over on our Discord. I can't wait to see what you do. Join our virtual class in seconds and learn live from Wing Canvas instructors. Enjoy weekly assignments, individual guidance, and get real-time feedback on your artwork so you can create like a fearless illustrator. If you learned something new, please like and share with a fellow art nerd. If you love receiving quality and free arts education, subscribe. Here's a couple of other art videos you can check out next.